Hey, welcome to another LScript tutorial in Lightwave 3D. In this particular tutorial, we're learning how to create a motion modifier for your objects. Motion modifiers are great for quickly animating something without actually putting keyframes there, so they are quite important. So let's learn how to create one, and surprisingly, it's actually rather easy. So we're going to create one that bounces a ball without us actually adding keyframes. So to begin that, let's add a no object and let's create a ball as an item shape, of course. And then when we hit the M for motion options, what we actually want is for our motion modifier to appear on this list right here, because this is the list of motion modifiers. So that's the part that I'm saying is actually quite easy to do. So in order to do that, let's dive in and open your text editor. You can use any text editor, even a notepad. I'm using Sublime Text. All right, so to begin with, let me write the warnings as we always do with Lightwave plugins, because we don't want the annoying warnings. Now, the only difference with the previous plugins that we've been making that are generic is here we have to write the word script and put the word motion. So Lightwave, if it doesn't find this line, it's going to assume that your plugin is a generic plugin, sorry. Now, in this case, we are writing motion. You can still write generic if you want, that's fine, but we're making a motion modifier here. The second thing is that usually we put a generic function like that, but in this case we will change this to process because this is what is required for a motion modifier. And then we put a full colon because we are going to give it a few arguments. They are called arguments, but they are variables. So MA, frame, and then the third one is time. Now, it doesn't matter what you name these as long as there are three of them like this. So the first argument here, or variable, is going to contain, okay, let me begin with this one. The frame is going to contain the frame number at the current time in the scene. The time will contain the current time, which is like the frame number, but in seconds. And then MA is going to contain, it will be the handle, like something we use when we want to reference the object that we have put this plugin on. So for example, if we add a plugin here to this item, the no object, then MA is going to contain a few parameters that pertain to that actual object, like for example, position, scale, and rotation. All right. So don't worry too much about this. It will become very apparent shortly. So once we do this, this is actually enough to create a motion modifier. So let me save this as bounce right there. So make sure when saving, you add the .ls at the end to make sure that it's an LScript. All right, so once we do that, we have a motion modifier. As easy as that. So let's go to the Utilities tab and add this plugin, which is called Bounce. Now, once I add it, if I go to the motion modifiers here, I'm going to see it listed as Bounce right there. So if I double click, nothing of course comes up. I play this, nothing comes up. So to get a picture of how exactly a motion modifier works is that, let me put a message here that says info frame. So we want to see what's inside the frame number here, like so. Now the thing here is every time the user moves the object, like this object, if I try to move it here, adjust the rotation, scale, or position, that function here, the process, will run. Every time I shift the frame number, the process for all motion modifier plugins in layout is going to run. So in order to prove that, I've added the info to show us the frame number at that time, and then remove this and add it again so that we have the new information there. And right there you see that it shows me I'm at frame 0. Now it's a bit annoying because it keeps coming up, but just press escape continuously. If I move to frame 30, You see, immediately it runs. If I select my item, it runs. If I move the item, it runs. Pretty annoying. But it shows us that this process function runs every time. Okay? Now, there's another function that we can create here, which is called the create function. Now, this one contains one argument like that. Now, this argument, you can name it anything you want, of course, because it's just a variable, but it represents the object that you've added this thing to. Now, just the same as this one, but there's a slight difference, and as we learn more, we're going to see what the differences actually are. Now, unlike the process function, the create function runs only once when the plugin is created, and the creation process is when you load the function. So in here, let it show us a message that like loaded, for example, something like that. We put inverted commas because this is a string. So we want it to show us when this function runs, because once it runs, it will show us a message. So let me go back here, remove this, add that, and you see loaded right there. Now, if I start moving things around, shaking this, you don't see the loaded coming back because that thing only happens once. So we can use that function to set a description for our motion modifier, because right now you see this, it says LScript bounce.ls, right? Now that is completely useless information. It doesn't look very professional because this is the file name. So for us to make it look more professional, we have to set a description for our plugin. So let's do that and just set description like that, and we'll call it bounce plugin like that. Okay, so let me go back here, remove that, and immediately you see bounce plugin. So this looks more professional if you want to be selling your plugins, of course. All right, so this has been it for now for part 1. We are going to come to part 2 and learn a few more things of how to actually move and get the position, rotation, and scale of that item. So if you like the video, click the like button, subscribe, and also if you can consider supporting me on Patreon, that would be awesome. All right, see you in the next video.